Hello, everyone from all around the globe. There is quite a number of people in the room here, in the virtual room, 30 plus, and people keep coming in. That's great. Let me introduce myself. I'm Benoit Rioux, chair of MethodsNet, and I'm really happy to welcome you to this next MethodsNet free webinar, which is organized by um, the équipe de choc, which in French, consisting of Bruna, Taimur, Emmanuel, and Suzy. And so let me just tell you a few words about MethodsNet, and I will then leave you in safe hands. So MethodsNet was founded 4 years ago. It's quite young as an organization, and it's quite an interesting and lively and original organization because it is a network which is global and non-profit. And what we do is we constitute, in a way, a double network around social science research methods, broadly defined. A network both of expert developers, pedagogues, so people who develop and teach methods, and also a network of users and learners at all levels, from advanced student onwards, also doctoral students, scholars, and practitioners. And so what we do is we organize multiple things. We organize two events. I'll tell you a bit more about them in the next slide, a summer school and an annual conference. I would like to stress that both events can be joined. Please come back to the previous slide, please. Yeah. Both can be joined online, so remote or in person. That's for the next slide. But then membership is important also as an opportunity. So you may join the association as a member. We're membership based. And this gives you access to different resources, in particular communities, and you'll know more about it in a couple of minutes. And also, of course, discounts for the events. And we're developing a database also of experts that you can join as expert, or that you can consult as a learner. I would also like to stress that membership is very accessible for scholars and especially also students from lower income countries. Have a look at our website and you will see the scheme. For many countries, actually, as a PhD student, it's actually free membership. And then we are developing services, the database I mentioned, but also gradually we'll be developing also pedagogical resources and place them online via the communities in particular. Next slide, please. Yes, and talking about our events, which are both in person and remote, we are now going to organize our fifth summer school. It's a quite large event, more than 300 people are joining such an event. We are offering 30 plus courses, all PhD level, and from introductory to intermediate to advanced topics, all taught by dedicated pedagogues who are also methods experts. And we offer these courses at really affordable rates and fees because it's all not for profit. It's taking place in Vienna, a great place in the summer. And the first week, the online courses are remote. You can attend them from anywhere in the globe. And even the time slots can be arranged most likely for most of these courses. And then there's two in-person weeks with two different formats, 20 or 25 hours per week. So very intensive with one-to-one mentoring and tutoring and helping out in your projects. So it'd be nice if some of you can join us in Vienna or remote in the week before. Then we have the conference. Our third conference will take place in Louvain-la-Neuve, Belgium, close to Brussels, very easy to reach, late October. And it's a very original conference. I would compare it to some sort of fair or forum with multiple groups crossing paths to both develop new innovations around research methods and also to apply them empirically So this is also open to users, and there's also a very broad offer of training sessions of different formats in short formats. And again, you can join this also remote if it is not possible for you to come to Belgium in October. And the call for proposals, there's multiple proposals, I think 9 proposal types, and you can submit your proposals now in the next 2 months. That's it about MethodNet. I will now give the floor to Emmanuel on behalf of the Global South and Research Methods community. And he will tell you much more about it. And I wish you a very good session. Remy, you have the floor. Emmanuel.
Yeah. Thank you, Benoit. Let me welcome you again to this launch. It's the launch of the Methods and Global South community of MethodNets. And then the Global South community is anchored on exploring how knowledge is produced, validated, shared, and governed across diverse contexts in Africa, Asia, Latin America, the Caribbean, the Middle East, and North Africa, and indigenous and historically marginalized communities worldwide. The goal, of course, of this community is to strengthen epistemic pluralism and support researchers through methods that are rigorous, context-responsive, and democratically accountable. So we promote inclusive global networking in the Global South Community Hub. We ensure that we connect with diverse scholars and practitioners regarding methods, excellence, and innovation within the Global South. The idea is that we create a space for promoting indigenous values, local and diverse perspectives, including traditional frameworks in our vision to make knowledge production more pluralistic. And we also want to foster a cross-border partnership that connects regions across the world through rigorous qualitative, quantitative, as well as mixed methods approaches to research. And the idea is to promote research equity globally, make methodological resources accessible, make global South innovations visible, and then make them more relevant on a global scale. The community is very active, and we have discussion forums, we have webinars like this, and we want to promote networking events. This is the launch of the Global South community, and the essence of the launch is to frame 2 interconnected questions that the community will work on through clinics, labs, and collaborative sessions. We asked 2 questions in this launch. The first is whose knowledge counts and how is it made legitimate? The second is how does AI shape research methods, power, and inclusion? And that's why the theme for today's webinar is Reimagining Methods from the Global South, Decentring Knowledge, and Recentring Humanity. And for this session, we have invited 2 gentlemen, 2 scholars to make presentation. The first to speak today is Dr. Gideon Oyango. He's a senior fellow at the London School of Economics and Political Science, the Firoz Laji Institute of Africa, specializing in public policy governance and the methodological implications of digital and AI-driven transformations in the Global South. The second person is, as you see here, Bruna Travora, and she is a postdoctoral researcher at the University of Munster. Her work combines political communication, participatory and computational methods, and Global South epistemology in our effort to advance research for social change. These 2 scholars will take charge for now. So I call on Gideon to take the first shot. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Emmanuel, Remy, for such a wonderful introduction and for the elaboration of Abinoa concerning MethodsNet. I think I've been part of MethodsNet, but not for the Global South. I remember joining with the invitation from Derek Beach from the university in Norway, in university in Denmark. So I've been familiar with what MethodsNet has been doing, though I've not been so much part of the discussions and the seminars, and so this is my first time. And thank you very much for inviting me. It is a great opportunity to engage in the conversations concerning issues of reimagining research, reimagining methods for research in the Global South, decentering knowledge of the Global South, and recentering humanity as it has been captured in this webinar. I'm honored to be here, and I prepared a very short presentation just to, in the spirit of reimagining methods with regard to AI. I think AI is something that we cannot wish away right now when it comes to issues of research, when it comes to issues of engaging in the higher education, and actually also in the teaching of our of our students. I remember I'm usually fascinated by my daughter. She's just 10 years old, and usually she's coming home and telling me that I'm doing research. Then I'm saying, okay, what are you doing? How are you doing research? Then she talks about this Copilot. She talks about Gemini, and she gives me comparison of what Gemini does and what Copilot can do, and all these AI tools in place. And at some point, I remember telling her, you need to go back and read, then you come back and consider using Gemini and using Copilot after you've read initially, not necessarily going to the Gemini and Copilot, then generating all the information. Then your research stops there. So, and this is I think is something that we are also wrestling with in higher education right now. We are experiencing a generation who can be called the digital natives, those who have been born in the digital environment. They have grown up with these cell phones. They have grown up with these AI tools right now. And the university in Africa and research community in Africa are also being disrupted as well by these new developments. And I think it is high time that we teach, and it's high time that we discuss how AI is impacting the manner in which we generate, or the manner in which we reimagine the methods of research, reimagine even the methods of teaching research, and reimagine the methods in which, more, if we go further to that, of disseminating research information out there. So in line with this reimagining methods using AI, I think there are three critical areas that we need to focus on. One is the understanding of what AI is. I remember I've been a part of the University of Nairobi faculty, and we had a lot of challenges on how to onboard issues of technology in research, issues of technology in the manner in which students were using the digital platforms, using AI in their research, and there was sort of resistance from the faculty, and there was sort of we were condemning. There's a lot of culture of condemning AI, and we are refocusing the students to go on to how things should be done now. And I remember one day we were having a discussion, and they're like, we cannot wish away AI, and we need to come up with, with modalities on where we should use AI, how we should use the AI in the higher education. Because today you are teaching in a class. I remember I was in a class in the University of Cape Town, and before you introduce that topic, already the student has a phone on their hand, and they have already generated the entire information. So while you're teaching, they're cross-checking whether what you're teaching is in line with the data they've already downloaded, they've already generated on their phone. So it's like you are being tested. You are like a teacher, but it's like you are an interview, and they're cross-checking what you're already doing. So meaning the information has exploded beyond what you as a scholar or what you as a researcher has at hand. The information has been largely decentralized, and it is very accessible and available to everyone. Now, that also comes with some implications as well, and that's not where I'm focusing on. I'm focusing on the matters that are in line with issues we're looking at in today. How can we reimagine methods from the global south, given that there are what we call underlying biases, there are structural inequalities, there are the knowledge production, the manner in which knowledge production has been ongoing for some time now, for decades now. It has been privileging the global north over the global south. And this is something we argue so much in public policy. And right now, when we are talking about policy theories and policy studies, we are looking at a context where the knowledge that we have has not or struggles to make it in the mainstream, what we call mainstream theory building, mainstream knowledge of public policy. And most of the time we tend to hark back on what has been developed in the United States. We tend to hark back on the theories that have been developed in the United Kingdom to try to explain our own realities, to try to reimagine our own realities. And the global south scholars have always found themselves in a position whereby they have to fit their realities, they have to fit their analysis in these theories that has been generated by realities from the West. They have to work so hard around those theories and try to squeeze their data to fit in those theories so that it is acceptable for those who are going to review these papers in the journals, which are also largely managed and edited and reviewed by the global south population of scholars. Now, this, with the era of AI, there is a danger, or there's a risk of this structural inequality being expanded further. The gap, this high possibility of this gap being opened further. And I think it is high time that the global south scholars and the higher education and the ministries in higher education should now be very intentional in developing AI skills that is needed to retain the role of AI in knowledge production, but with regard to the realities that we are experiencing as global south scholars in the global south, because we believe that there are a lot of information that is not existing, because AI is a tool that is being trained. It is a space where there is some information that has been put there, and the manner in which that information has been fed into the system, it has been fed in tandem with already existing prejudices and trends and the themes of knowledge production. And therefore, for us to refocus this, to reimagine this kind of landscape, we need the universities, we need the Ministry of Higher Education and related stakeholders to refocus on developing AI skills at the local level that are focusing on local knowledge and local perceptions, local definitions of issues that you are dealing with. And this will mean that we'll have to deal with algorithmic biases, which are more likely to reinforce the underlying inequalities that I've talked about between the global south and the global north. But also we need very specific strategies, which are currently very common in the landscape of governance. And this is co-creation, because AI tends to be a tool that is more developed in the private sector. The government is not the creator of AI. The AI is owned by big techs. This AI is being used in terms of profit generation and profit maximization. But in so doing, it is also being used to ensure that we improve the environment of public services, to use it in governance processes because of the possibilities it avails for us when we talk of issues of efficiency, of effectiveness, and of cost cutting. But now that will mean that if we are to use it in the higher education, then we'll need to take on co-creation. We need to invite various stakeholders. We need an environment where the leadership is so much focused on innovation, on inviting other stakeholders, collaborating with them, and this also to generate co-funding, program, either on students or instructors or lecturers at the university or the community of the higher education. We need very many sources of funding, and we need stakeholders, co-stakeholders engagement, so that we come up with more specific, well-negotiated, understandable models of engagement, areas of training, and skill sets that we need at the higher education, depending on the challenges we have at different levels. We cannot have this overall or general fit to context, or not fit to context, but one size fit all model of engagement that has been our problem for so many years right now. For those of us who are in public policy, this is something that we're arguing all the time, that we don't need one size fit all, but we need fit to context solutions. And I think when we are also doing AI training, we need fit to context contextually informed skill set training, so that we address the problems we have on the ground without comparing ourselves in a way that will disable our progress going forward. And I think another area which is related to that is the universities need to do capacity building and training for we are having these periodical pedagogical trainings, which Emmanuel is also part of. And I think it is high time that also AI is brought on board, so that we start the conversation on how we can integrate AI in our syllabuses. We can integrate AI in our teaching methods. We can integrate these digital tools that we have on how students should therefore reimagine how they go about doing research. Because today, a student will sit down and instead of doing the literature review, they'll go to Copilot or they'll go to any other tool and will generate the entire literature review. And if we are not very careful and we don't have the capacity to understand what is AI generated and what is not AI generated, then we are going to miss out. We are going to create a population that are not capable, are not well equipped with research methods, are not very capacitated when it comes to research skills and research, development and production. So we need to jump on board. The university and scholars need to jump on board to ensure that we transform the culture of the university right now to align it with the new developments that we are having in realities of AI. We need to change our pedagogies to also integrate issues of AI. We need well-allocated resources. And most importantly, actually, we also need specific hubs that are meant to, be the hotspots where there is engagement, where new ideas are being generated, where frameworks are being modeled for particular courses, for particular areas within the higher education, within the university. We need these AI hubs, and we can have within those hubs, we can have AI champions that do certification and training for particular department and units within the university. We already have this in place when it comes to technology. We have departments of IT which are doing this, but I think we need also to boost the departments of IT to integrate issues of AI so that we have a full package with regard to issues we are dealing with. But most importantly to that, the third point that I'm coming to, I'm almost finishing, is a regulatory framework needs to be in place. And this should be created with the intention of redefining ethical principles around research and application in knowledge production. Currently, for example, the government of UK late last year, developed a regulatory framework, developed what it calls the ethical principles on how to apply AI in public services. And right now, there's a lot of collaboration. Early this year, I think last month, the government engaged Meta, and they came up with a model or an agreement on how Meta can assist the government on how to use AI or adopt AI in the public service. And so far, according to the survey that was done, I think this month, there are about 70% of public institutions are considering on how to integrate AI in decision making and in various aspects of administration. And while this is happening, this transformation is happening, the university space, there is a lot that is happening as well. There are areas where AI is being resisted. I was just reviewing a grant project, a grant proposal for UKRI And the instructions that I was given, one of the instructions that I was given when I was doing my review and writing my review report, I was instructed very clearly that I should not use AI in any way, including even sentence construction. I should be as very traditional as possible when I was doing my review. And that to me was an indicator of how there is also still a culture of resistance towards AI. And I think when we have a regulatory framework in place, this regulatory framework will help us address some of the fears and some of the risks that tend to threaten some of the principles we have in place when it comes to issues of accountability, when it comes to issues of equity, when it comes to issues of transparency on how we use and how we generate and how we dispense knowledge in the space of research and even in teaching in our classes. So I think, but this regulatory framework needs to be more broader than just dealing with the university, but it needs to be informing the entire framework of governance, the entire framework of engagement and knowledge production. It should be actually spearheaded more by the government and by the national research foundations like the one we have in South Africa. I think that direction, if we take that direction and we have clear intentions and engagement that are more locally focused, then we'll be able to try to, integrate AI in our research environment, in reimagining the methods we use and transforming how we go about, onboarding research in the era of AI going forward. I think I will stop there and I will allow the session to go on. I will welcome questions later on and engagement on my thoughts, my short presentation. Thank you very much again, Emmanuel. Yeah. And I look forward to doing it. Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Gideon. I think the next speaker will be Bruna before we go into the sessions where we ask questions. So thank you very much. Bruna.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you, everybody, for being here. And also thank you, Susie, Hemi, Taimur for the organization, and Gideon for the super insightful presentation. So now I will share my screen and to start my presentation. So welcome to my presentation. The topic of my presentation is named Whose Knowledge Counts and How Is It Made Legitimate? So in my talk today, I prepared an overview of notables, indigenous, and quilombola authors and thinkers in Brazil and over Latin America, but also India. And with the objective to share a little bit some of their epistemic reflections and epistemic perspectives related to science and knowledge. Let me see how okay. So this is the summary of my topic. I will start with this overview of what I understand of traditional people and communities. And then I will present some of main works from specific authors. And then I conclude with some potential methods from a traditional and people and communities perspective. So first of all, when we think about traditional people and communities, like to make it simple, very simple, we are referring to people who were there in the land, in the territory before colonization, before Western colonization advanced through Asia, Oceania, Latin America, and the Americas in general. So we are talking about indigenous communities. We are talking about the Afro-descendants from different countries in the African continent and and also their diaspora for different countries all over the world. In this case, mostly due to the big crime of humanity, which is related to slavery. But we are also talking about fishermen. We are also talking about rural people. So diverse territorial groups who's also from the time now are also being recognized as people with holding knowledge that are very important to keep territorial ties and also environmental protection. So groups of communities and groups of different territorial expressions and societies that kept themselves in the territory, and in face of the crisis we are living together, living nowadays, has shown and proved a lot of useful knowledge to our crisis. So at this point, I refer specifically to Levis and colleagues from 2020 in a paper that she published in Science journal, reflecting about how those traditional communities and traditional epistemologies, specifically related to indigenous communities, have contributed to sustainable practices and the environmental science in general. So those are the authors I would like to share with you. They are part of my toolkit of research, but they are also very much respectable and recognized authors. I would go to one of them, and I hope that this presentation inspires you and also gives you some insights and thoughts of potential use of this research and these authors also in your own research. So I would like to start with Vandana Shiva. She is an author from India and very much recognized as a reference in the biological science. I just checked Google Scholar and she has like more than 30,000 citations. So specifically mostly related to this book called Monocultures of Mind. So in this work, she's gonna reflect that the way the production is organized in industrial sectors and also mainly all over the Western, it's related to many kinds of monoculture. At this moment, she's making a parallel between the monoculture of food and the monoculture of thoughts. So she reflects that the way social work and social production is organized provokes erasure of a mind space that would allow us to imagine different futures or imagine different production strategies or imagine different ways of organizing our society. So she conceptualizes it as a monoculture of mind, and it's related to one single way of knowing the world. At this point, she's also making criticism related to the Western industrial science, which is very, very important, right? And I think that here we have a challenge. So she challenges the idea of universality when she thinks about science, because then she's going to think that what is considered the universalization of science most of the time have not considered the particularities of these territorial groups. And it also have promoted erasure and delegitimization of local indigenous and peasants' knowledge. So I'm sure that all of us here have examples to give of how our how different rural movements or groups in our countries. I know here I see different names. I suppose that part of us may be in the global south. I'm sure we have different examples to show how local communities had this delegitimization of knowledge. For the Brazilian case, for example, there is a very common image to present the rural peasant, for example, always presented as someone who is lazy or someone who is back in the past. So it has created the marginalization of community-based knowledge systems. The second one is quilombola. Quilombola is a term that was coined in the Brazilian Constitution to refer to Afro-Brazilians who remained in the territory in Brazil. So the case for Brazil is related that post slavery, many groups, many Black communities who has arrived in Brazil because of the slavery market, this genocide and the worst crime in humanity, have also developed a lot of agency strategies. And these territories that were based in the agency of these Black communities were known as quilombos. So in Brazil, there is this concept to refer to Afro-Brazilians. So I bring here the book and the work from Nego Bispo, which is a quilombola. And he acknowledges the importance to keep the criticism over the colonization. And he brings this perspective that knowledge, when we think about knowledge, science, and knowledge production, we cannot detach it from the territory and from the social conflicts, from the struggles. And by acknowledging this, he's going to show that, therefore, we should also look for knowledge in different places, not only on the books, not only on the libraries, maybe not only on the peer-reviewed journals, but also listening from the old people, the elderly. In the Afro culture in Brazil, we would call griots. So those Asian people who holds knowledge that should be learned from and should be heard. Also addressing the issue of practice. So in this regard, a lot of the empirical knowledge comes to the importance. And finally, the idea that not only the science in general, but we as researchers also should be accountable, respectful, and reciprocal, giving back to communities rather than extracting knowledge, right? So thinking about these dimensions of ethics, considering that those people in territory has also their knowledge and their territorial knowledge, and also their epistemic authorities. The other one is an indigenous, indigenous author named Ailton Krenak. He is from the Krenak group, and this is the book I bring for you. It's called Life is Not Useful, and he also addresses the issue that when indigenous communities are thinking about knowledge, it's not only focused on what the human mind has created, but as this separation between body and mind it's very blurred when we think about traditional people and communities. They would also argue this relational aspect of knowledge. So thinking about acknowledging that the knowledge is also a construction between human nature and community. So in this regard, you learn not only by transmitting messages, but also by embodying and experiencing things, what's going to have consequences related to how we learn and how we teach, right? So if we consider that the knowledge is not only on the mind and not only between people, we can see new spaces of learning and knowing in regard. And as like Nego Bispo, also reflecting that this body of knowledge is not only individual and that should be linked to responsibility. The next one is another indigenous also author. Her name is Silvia Cusicanqui. She's from Bolivia. She's from the Aymara indigenous group. And she also addresses the key for anti-colonialism. And she goes further to reflect that when we talk about colonialism today, we are not only talking about physical structure, but she acknowledges that colonialism also demanded the extraction of the previous knowledge. So one thing that she brings to as an example, she's going to say that one of the first strategies that colonization and colonizers did when they arrived in the Americas, for example, was to name the cities after the word new. New Amsterdam, New York, knew this, knew that. And she reflects that when you, this strategy of naming differently started by creating different relational systems between the land. And another point that she brings is related to the invention in her idea of the word nature, because she's going to say that the epistemic knowledge from these traditional communities have never thought about the distinction between human and nature. So she addresses this distinction from this time, from this period time. And to say that in this, the colonialism was also this transformation and extraction of knowledge system. So doing this, she also is very open, and she advocates, in fact, for the challenges that Western academic frameworks pose when analyzing the local context. So she reflects that we as Latin Americans, but also we that are not in the very Western core, should pay attention if we really want to use general categories. So making kind of a parallel with the previous, with Gideon, I think that's the question is almostly the same. How much we should adapt to reflect about our own realities, since we acknowledge that these epistemic words and structure was not made and was not thought in this context. One other thing that is very, let's say, contradictory, and I think that brings a lot of discussion to the table, is the clear idea that the researcher should recognize his or her positionality. So this idea that a research has a position, that it has an ethical perspective, they are not aiming to be neutral. And I think that this poses challenges when we are establishing dialogues with the Western system, but it's also long tradition of indigenous knowledge to acknowledge this kind of importance related to science. And finally, she would say that science should not remain only theoretical or institutional. So doing this connection with the local struggles and challenges that people who are making science or people who are being the study of the science are facing. And finally, I bring Marisol de la Cadena. She is from Peru, but she's now in the US. And she she brings this perspective of contraposing the idea of universalism to the idea of pluriverse. So this acknowledgement that, okay, there is something that we could understand like in a universal perspective, but more should be done when we consider that there are differences, there are inequalities, there are nuances that are not fitting in the idea of universal science. So she's always addressing this reflection that humans and non-humans are integrated when you think about social problems in general or even public policies, and acknowledging the multiple words and epistemic that exist in the world. Really, that's not something that they are saying that it exists. No, they are existing. There are communities, there are territories that hold this knowledge. And also the idea that communities in this kind of research should be also co-producing the knowledge and not merely source of data. Okay, so what do they share in common? I bring this image. This is an image from Ankara. If someone has more information, like detailed information from my limited knowledge, it's related to Ghana. Maybe Susie could share something related to it. And this is an image that refers to the acknowledgement that those communities and the science now should not only look for the most new development, but also should bring inspiration from what is back. So if we look at the image, this is a bird, so to say, and this bird is looking back. And this movement of looking back is a metaphor to get inspiration, to look what was done before. Before of what, right? Before of colonization, before of what has transformed the Western society, but the acknowledgement that there was before, there was other knowledge systems, other ideas, other technologies, to use our artificial intelligence perspective. So this idea that we have not started society from colonization on, but there is a long history and a long tradition that should be acknowledged. And they also acknowledge, all of them, the critics of colonialism as this standing point where things have changed through this territory. So now I move forward very quickly to see, okay, we have this premise, this epistemological premise. This is our standing point from an epistemic perspective. What kind of methods can we do so at having this as a perspective? So as we can see here, very different from a researcher in front of a computer. So we are talking about, I brought three main participatory methods that are used by these researchers. So the first one, it's called dialogue circles, which is very popular and was invented by but also not invented in the sense, because dialogue circles exist since the beginnings of time, but it was conceptualized as a methodology by Paulo Freire, which is a very well-known scholar, also from Brazil, from the educational politics. And it's basically iterative discussions with the communities. So at the beginning, we could think about it similar to a focus group, but having in mind different ethical perspectives. So the notion of a dialogue circle is related to the idea that the researcher, when implementing or design your research with specific groups of communities, it has to be done in a way that it is continuous. So different waves of dialogue circles to share perspectives related to the research, to share objectives related to the research, and also to listen from what these people that you are engaging also think that it should be done. Also, it's related to a flexible research design, because in this regard, the study is open and adaptable, incorporating waves of feedback. And also the idea of collaborative data collection. So knowledge is collected and systematized through active interaction, feedback, joint reflection with the research participants. Of course, that the positivist mind now should be making so much questions. And I think that those methodologies and those epistemic frameworks and paradigms, they really are questioning those kinds of other paradigms. The idea of people researchers, so this is also super interesting. I myself have used it quite a few times. So it's that idea that in the research design, the researcher explicitly incorporates the participation of the community as a researcher. So in the research design, there is this moment where the researcher is also occupied in sharing some research techniques with the community. So the reach of the research and the reach of the data collection, it's not only on the researcher's hand, but also kind of dispersed in the community. And there is like different strategies to organize a timeline for feedbacks and for data collection and for data treatment. But overall, it's this perspective that one of the feedbacks that the research is giving to the community is also this training in research. So also reflecting about how we as researchers with specific fundings and some beneficials can also share this knowledge with the community in the term of science. And so in this regard, there is this blend of academic methods with lived experiences and practices of the group. And the approach transformed the research community relationship, shifting the study. Of course, we are not considering the study objects. We never say it, but also subjects collaborating the research. Also, another one, which is from Silvia Kuzikanki. She has developed many of these image workshops, and it's also based on the idea that we need to practice the imagination. So one of the constraints of the Western paradigm is related to this monoculture of mind, right? So the sociology of the image workshops has this objective to practice creativity in regard to imagine. What kind of situations can you imagine? I could make a parallel with planning future scenarios, for example, that at some point brings a bit of this perspective. But there is this idea that in this moment, we are interested in looking at image in general. So, for example, not only I myself brought an image for us to see, but also what are the images that circulate in the community? What are the images that the participants use to refer to this or to that practices? So in this method, becomes very important the notion of metaphors, the notion of storyline, the notion of storytelling. So this thing that is very present in societies that was more focused on oral history. In those societies, many reflections related to the image. So kinds of research that interacts with the participants, not in the terms of the argumentation, but in the terms of the imagination. It's also very adaptable for this research. And then I bring just two cases of evidence policymaking, which are derived from these strategies. So the first one would be this rates of nature framework. I'm not sure if you are aware, but there is this many discussions on this framework that recognizes that natural beings have rights. And so we are saying that not only we are saying that rivers, forests, and for example, kinds of rice species have knowledges in regard to be existing. So many of the rights of nature framework is related to the advancement or not of destructive practices. So I bring this example of the rights of Manu Min, which is a white rice, and it was an advocacy from the White Earth Band of Ojibwe, part of the Minnesota Chippewa in the United States. So this group, acknowledging these kinds of epistemic knowledge, advancing these kinds of framework. And the other one is the United Nations Declaration of the Rights of Peasants and Other People Working in Rural Areas, which also acknowledge that there is specificities that these groups should be facing because they have been protecting nature and environments for so long that it should also be considered in the regulation. So just to finish, bring some challenge. Of course, that if you aim to interact globally, we are facing challenges because the Western research paradigm prioritizes objectivity, generalizability, and standardized methods, which can be more challenging when you are thinking about participatory approach and when you want to acknowledge the diversity of the groups you are working with. Also, a risk of undervaluing local knowledge systems because maybe think it not really as valid. Risk of extractive practices, so you can potentially go to the community and try to do something, but assuring that feedbacks and the outcomes can also be shared by the researcher and the community. And this idea of flexibility and particularity that might clash with universality and generalizability. And finally, of course, it's a super time-consuming process because it's very different from extracting data and analyzing it in the computer. So it needs trust building, iterative reflection, co-analysis, and may not fit conventional funding cycles and or even conventional funding proposals, right? So I think that's some of the challenges that we have. And this is my literature. And by now, I hope that you are a little bit inspired with new epistemic possibilities for your own research. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruna, for that very excellent presentation. We've talked about AI and research in the Global South. Now we have looked at epistemic innovations from the Global South. I think it's time for Q&A. And is Sri Krishna here? She's supposed to preside over the Q&A session.
No, she's not. I think Taimo will take over.
Yeah,
Okay,
I
great.
can
Yeah,
moderate
thank you.
the Q&A session. So, first I see hand raised by Loud.
Yeah.
So, can you please unmute yourself and ask your question?
Okay,
And
thank you.
also, who is the question for?
Okay, first I want to thank the presenters, the two presenters. They've done a very lovely job, and I like their presentation. But I think my question will go to the second presenter. I want to find out, looking at the colonial and then the post-colonial, she used a symbol that is very predominant in Ghana. That is the Sankofa symbol that says that we need to go back to our past, take what we value as good or the good knowledges, and then practice it today. And I think that is basically what she's trying to tell us with her presentation when she talks about who invented the knowledge and what is real about the knowledge. I just want to find out what would be our situation in Africa, for example, if we want to go back. Where are we going back to take the knowledge? Because there is a book written by our first president, that's Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, and in his book, Conscientism, he talks about the Africa in 1964, that the Ghana today is not the old Ghana. The Ghana today has been influenced by the Western and the two major religions, that's the Islamic and then the Christian religion. So I want to know if we want to go back within our methodology, especially when she talks about this epistemology, that is the image workshop. The second one that looks at the engage directly with communities to understand the lived experience. Our lived experiences now has changed because it has been influenced so much by Western culture, our religion, and now with the first presenter, we have even AI, we have human rights, we have a lot of issues that has affected us today. So if we want to go back, how would we go back? If we even want to use this epistemology where we have to engage communities to understand our lived experience, the lived experiences has been infiltrated and influenced by so many things. So how do we get the truth from our side? Thank you.
Yes, of course, I don't have the answer, right? But your question allows me to also address something that there is no romanticization of the past. So it's very nice that you bring it. So we are not saying that before colonization, everybody was only being happy and sharing the knowledge. So I would say that this is more like how do you say, like this animation strategy, right? The use of the image. And I really thought twice because I knew Susie is from Ghana. So the information I have from Brazil, of course, that might be limited to some extent. But I think that you bring a good reflection to think about what is this past that we are looking back, and how can we look back at this past now if our societies are so transformed. And I think that this is a question for us. This is the question I have been making myself since I started doing research, right? What is and I think that the answer is an ethical answer. So it's like a mix of epistemic and ethic, right? So this is an ethical perspective of what is the project, right? What is the project that this kind of science is engaged with? What is the project of science? What is the project of society? Maybe some reflections that I'm not sure how much this is done from a more like positivist perspective, but for sure, when we think about this ethical premise, that's what we are thinking about, because we acknowledge inequalities, we acknowledge social issues, social problems, we are talking about poverty, we're talking about hunger. So definitely we have this ethical perspective when we are doing our research. So I think this is something to be built and to be constructed. It's not there in somewhere, but it's like the construction of this. I think that would be my first comment, but totally acknowledging that this is something to be discovered, I think, and to be created. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about more.
Thank you too.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any further questions?
Let me ask.
Yeah, please.
I ask question. Yeah, I was going to want to ask Gideon this question of AI in research. It's a challenge, not just for researchers, but also for students in doing assignments and all of that. In many institutions, including many journals, they are also struggling to develop things like guidelines, like frameworks, And now if you write a paper, they will ask you to make some declaration, whether you have used AI, to what extent you have used it. In fact, they have categories and all of that. Where is this guidelines? How are they evolving? What are the kind of information or principles that is informing them, and how do we translate those for those of us teaching research methods for our students? I agree with you that we can't wish away AI, we can't ignore AI, but what the guidelines and the categorization they give, the options they offer, suggest that there's a limit to which you're expected to use AI. There's a limit to which you have gone overboard. So for a research method class, how do you confront AI for postgraduate students?
Thank you very much, Emmanuel, for that. And indeed, so many so many journals and even the universities, they are putting limits on how you should apply AI in research and in our academic endeavors. I think most of the issues we are wrestling with, and even it's very evident also in the journals, is it harks back into the idea of originality and ethical matters, and going back to the traditional values. How do we maintain? What I see is that we are grappling with the question of how to maintain the values. There are some values we don't want to lose, and how do we progress without losing these values? And I think most guidelines, even though they differ, there's no standard. Each journal has their own guideline on what they accept for AI and what they don't accept. Actually, others do not want to accept it at all. Others want you to state clearly how you use that AI, but they also put it very clearly that there's an extent which they will not accept the paper if you use AI. And the question or the source of friction comes from this Gen AI. When you look at, for example, let's say you want to use Copilot, because Copilot is generative AI, it has a lot of that. Also Grammarly, which is being used as well. But now there was a study that was conducted where they were checking the level of acceptance on plagiarism. And they realized that when you're using Grammarly, the levels of acceptance in a journal is higher than if you use other sources of AI. So meaning that the currency is put on the extent to which the research is original, and the research has ethical measures that we can, hacking back into the methods of reliability, issues of validity, validity questions. So there's a lot of questions around that. The idea and what we're trying to do with regulating AI is oscillating around the questions, the traditional questions of how do we maintain validity of a study? How do we ensure that there's originality? Now, how do we do this? Therefore, in the university where we've been dealing with the students who most of the time we say that they don't want to do research, and now with AI, here comes the AI, because most of the time, traditionally, we're dealing with the students who they go and they copy their work, or else they give somebody to write for them, as we saw in the scandal of BBC with regard to universities in the UK, where Kenyans were writing for the PhD and master students abroad. So how do we regulate that? I think that's where now the universities or the higher education sector need to come and put their head together to find clear guidelines on what should be done and what should not be done. And I was giving an example also, just borrowing from what the UK government is doing with AI, because all government institutions like health, there has been complaint about how NHS has employed AI in making medical appointments, doctors making appointments, and how you book for those appointments. It was stated that it favors particular generation and it excludes a particular generation who are actually in need of that service more than the generation that the AI is allowing more access into the system. So I think guidelines depends on the sector, because each sector is different. They have different principles. They have different ethics. It depends on the location, because we need not to have general the one size fits all. We need to ensure that AI positions each society and ideas differently. It has been very visible in the ongoing case in Kenya and even in Ghana and Nigeria, with Meta versus the human rights abuses of content moderators. It was realized that the language which we use sometimes, and hacking back on what Bruna was saying, how do we preserve that as we move ahead? How do we hack back into the indigeneity of our issues? There are also other questions in South Africa where they are saying that, what do we need to feed into AI and what do we not need to feed into AI? So there's a lot of grumbling on, and you can see even myself, I'm grumbling to answer that question as well. There's a lot of grumbling with what should be included and what should not be included. But I think what we need to focus on is the specificity of what do you want to do with AI? What do you want to achieve with AI? What are we losing? What are the risks and what are the opportunities? So I think we need to map it, risks versus opportunity and loss versus gain. I think that will be a good way of going about it, rather than trying to find a model that fits all, like it is common with most practices. I hope I've answered your question.
Thank you. Yeah, it's quite engaging discussion, but I think we are a bit short on time, and it's a good time to split into the breakout rooms and continue with the same discussion there. So the first breakout room is Reflexive Methods Clinic, and the second one is AI in Research Methods. So it would allow us to build more on the discussions and the talks that we have, and have a bit of more specialized topics, so that yeah, the two rooms can actually explore their interest further. So
Yes, so everyone can please go ahead and join any one of the rooms. So you would see, you should have the breakout room pop up with the Reflective Methods Clinic and the AI and Research Methods.
okay, then yeah, and we meet after roughly 30 minutes of discussions in the breakout rooms.
Yeah, apologies, but I think I'm also leaving. If it's okay.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot for your time and very interesting talk. So hopefully, Susie will lead the discussion from there.
Yeah, thank
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I look forward to further engagement. I'll send an email to Remy. Right. Thank you very much, and have a great time.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks.
you. Okay, so thank you everyone for coming back to the main room. I think we're just going to do a bit of a quick recap on our discussions in the two breakout rooms, and then we will just conclude the launch, if that's okay. So I don't know if the Brunas room would like to begin. So it doesn't necessarily have to be Bruna. It could be anyone in the room who would just like to share their thoughts on what they found interesting or anything of that sort.
I'll give the floor to you.
Maybe Emmanuel would like to summarize what we have in discussions.
Yes, I think the discussion was very interesting and deep in the sense that virtually everyone in that group was engaged with research that sought to harvest context-specific knowledge into ongoing debates. And there's always a mix of academic work and then activism in the sense of engaging with communities, learning from the way they do their things and how this can be harvested and fed into policy making or decision transformation. And many of the participants come from various backgrounds and from different countries. Some have moved from their original countries to another. And we're then looking at how they experience these processes in the various communities where they work, especially the challenges that they face in terms of the research infrastructure that's already in place, in terms of dealing with processes that are not traditional, and then trying to sustain the process across these challenges in the various contexts. And then we then agreed that we have to carry on with this conversation. Bruna also told us a story about a particular experience with one community concerning how they manage land. And it's a very enlightening experience. So the conversation will continue and our research will also continue. And we also know that we operate in an environment where we are on the margins, not on the central dominant tradition. So the challenges that come with that also has to do with our personal opportunities and then how we want to progress in our careers and the setback that we face focusing on those things in the process of doing regular research. But opportunities also exist in terms of the kind of outlets that we should take advantage of while trying to engage with mainstream research methods.
Okay, so in our room, I don't know if anyone would like to just recap what we discussed. I apologize if I happen to call your name out of the blue. And if you're not comfortable speaking, that's fine as well. But I don't know, Jacqueline, if you'd like to share your thoughts. Okay. So in our room, we sort of, just basically discussed the the biases inherent in using these Gen AI tools, especially the free versions. We explored the ways of using them effectively as tools by being mindful and learning skills such as prompt engineering. I think we also just briefly mentioned things like being able to develop agents that help us to achieve our objectives, and where we can have a bit more control on the type of output it provides us. We highlighted the need, again, to use it as a tool and not to be the thing that sort of just spews out everything we need and just submit it without necessarily engaging and critically challenging whatever output that might be. We explored the ways or the parts in the research process that AI could be helpful and where it may not necessarily be as effective. So, for instance, in being able to transcribe interviews and things in certain indigenous dialects, right? The fact that it may not necessarily be able to transcribe them well, especially considering the fact that even sometimes the English itself might not always be as perfectly produced. Yeah, so we basically, just to summarize, we did have a look at the potential biases, how we could use AI effectively, and within what contexts we could use them effectively. We also try to almost highlight the relevance of it, especially in the world today of publish or perish, and all the struggles and the pressures of being an academic in today's world, right? As opposed to a few years or a few centuries ago, where we had the opportunity to be really learned in a particular field because we had all the time to engage with the literature, as opposed to now when there's opposing responsibilities at the same time. And so, yeah, so basically our conversation just ended there. Not really ended there, concluded there for today, but then we're able to draw out a lot of themes that we would like to take on moving forward, especially in the sense of a bit more practical, hands-on webinars and sessions that we'll be organizing in the community. And so I'll just pause at this point, but basically that's what we discussed in that room. But I'll just pause at this point to see if anyone has any comments, and then we'll conclude the session.
Susie, just one thing. I think
Yeah.
that maybe next ideas for a webinar, we could do something related to AI and the
Yes.
topic that we are reflecting, because there are a lot of overlaps between indigenous and local community struggles related to the development of AI. And
Yes.
also what Tamer brought, how once we are working with this kind of data and the information from the local communities are not there, how can we produce also things using the technologies? But so yeah, I think that we have this inspiration maybe for next connections on the topic.
That's actually a really good idea. So actually that brings me nicely into the next thing we're going to talk about, that it would be helpful for us to join the community. So we can all join. I think Mariana asked that question earlier. We can all join the community by going to MethodsNet, the MethodsNet website, and then registering and signing up for the community. In that community, the idea, as Emmanuel mentioned, is to build a collaborative space where we can ask questions, where we can get access to knowledge, where we can collaborate with people. The community's activities, we aim to have more regular activities, more regular sessions that would be not only discussions of this nature, but then would also be as practical as possible. So similar to what Bruna has mentioned, our next session will be looking exactly at how we can properly design a context-responsive research from that AI perspective. And we will be sharing details, for instance, the time and link of that particular session moving forward. For us to be able to get access to this information, it would be helpful for us to join the community so we are always kept abreast And similar to what Benoit said, I mean, just like Benoit said earlier, for those of us who are PhD students, I think I noticed a number of us were PhD students, especially in my room. Those of us who are PhD students from the Global South, there are a number of countries where you can actually join this community for free. And so it would be good, or at a very reduced rate. So it would be good for us to take advantage of the resource, especially the fact that it's a community where we can get access to a lot of experts in the field who could support us, who we could collaborate with in terms of research and all that. So at this point, I think all there is left to say is just to say a very huge thank you to Gideon, who's left us fortunately, and Bruna as well for the very invaluable insights into how we can use AI and exactly whose knowledge is relevant. There were so many points I personally took out of these discussions, right? And that they are very thought-provoking, and there are certainly things I'll be going away to think about. So, for instance, when Gideon mentioned the need for hubs and to create hotspots for engagement, that way we can properly address the biases in terms of the data that you can find in AI or whatever output it would produce, right? So that it's not biased towards either the global north or biased towards a certain positivist view. And from Bruno's speech, I think I wrote a number of points down. I don't even know which one to to summarize on, but I think the one that stood out most to me was Vandana Shiva's monoculture of the mind, and especially the point that knowledge is not only from the books, right? So similar to what you said and what Lord's question, it lives within the people who have lived before us, and it is up to us now to think about how exactly we can extract that information from them, which is why I think the dialogue circles and the people as researchers is such an amazing um strategies or tools for us to be able to get that. Yes, so I think I'll just probably end there because I could go on and on about the valuable insights I got from the sessions. And so I hope we're all able to find at least some value as much as I did from that. And just as a reminder, please do remember to log on to the MethodsNet portal to join the community, and it's Methods and Global South community. In that community, we will be sharing our next session, and there we'll be able to engage practically with our colleagues. We'll be able to ask questions. Please do also follow us on our social media. So a number of you may have seen our post in LinkedIn. So please do also follow us and to keep updated on our latest resources. So I'd just like to say thank you so much for your commitment to methodological rigor. We look forward to seeing you in our subsequent sessions. We look forward to receiving your proposals on our conference, and we look forward to welcoming you at our summer school. Please have a productive day, and thank you all so much.